we can immediately rule out C tier, D tier, F tier.
I don't know how I feel about that. I tried to be fair.
Fair.
Because I have favorites.
Welcome back to This is the Wayseekers, a podcast for Star Wars fans by Star Wars fans. And I know what you're thinking. Oh my god, these guys are still talking about Andor. Way to milk the fuck out of the series.
Okay, but the official Star Wars accounts are still talking about it, so why can't we?
Exactly. And might I add that a good Star Wars series is a rarity around these parts. God forbid we bask in the glory of Andor, not just Season 2, but also taking a look back at Season 1 today. But as always, I'm here with my co-host Scotty Holiday to discuss Andor. I'm super excited, Scotty. I always love doing these tier lists together because, I love to argue with you. I love to compare our opinions. I wonder how different our opinions of Andor will be, though.
I feel like when I was coming up with my stuff, I tried to be fair.
Fair.
Because I have favorites.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who's been watching us knows I love an episode where Mon Mothma shines.
Mm-hmm.
But I tried to be very fair with my rankings. So I feel like maybe we'll be more on the same page.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying not to be biased. We'll see.
Yeah, 100%. It is very difficult to rank this show. I think we should just get started. I think off the bat, we can immediately rule out C tier, D tier, F tier. No, I'm just kidding. But its quality is consistent throughout the entire thing. But like you said, I definitely have favorites. There's definitely bigger things that happen in each of these episodes. So there's definitely ones that are better than the others.
Well, with that, let's get right into it and start off with the first ever arc, Season 1 episodes 1 through 3, the Ferrix Arc, if you will. And I think this was a great opener for the series. It really set the tone right away. And for me, it's not one of my favorite arcs, but it's still a good arc. So I immediately put it in A tier because I was like, it's not at the height of Andor, but this is a good arc. It really sets the tone right up from the jump.
I don't disagree with you that it sets the tone, but I will say that I think compared to some of the other episodes, it's very slow, a little boring at times, if I must say. I do really enjoy the arc, and I think that once you watch all 3 episodes together, it pays off, but I think there's a reason that when they first released that arc, they released all 3 episodes at once, because some of those episodes alone, especially the second one, could have been really boring, but there's so much to enjoy in it. I have it in B tier, though, because in my opinion, it's one of the lowest arcs for me.
I didn't even put anything in B tier, so
really?
That is no.
Wow.
This is I like this arc a lot, and it's specifically the finale. The finale of this arc, where Luthen comes into town, the Morlana security force and Cyril comes into town. Such a great ending.
Yeah.
But it is kind of slow at the beginning, but that's all the world building that we get. So I don't mind putting it in B tier, but I still think it's a good arc.
Oh, it's a fantastic arc. But there has to be a lowest rated one. Actually, I don't even think this is my lowest rated, but we'll get there when we get there.
Oh, no. Okay.
Well, already starting off shaky, already disagreeing. So let's get into the Aldhani Arc. Now, the Aldhani Arc of Andor is probably the most underrated arc of the entire show for me. It just never gets enough appreciation. But to be fair, when you have Andy Serkis escaping prison and the Ghorman citizens being massacred, who the fuck cares about this ragtag group of rebels? But I think that's what makes the arc so great. It shows on a smaller scale where the rebellion started, these random acts that Nemik even mentions in his manifesto, where it's just these small acts of rebellion that all add up over time and eventually break the camel's back. So I really liked seeing that. It's like the start of the rebellion to me with this Aldhani arc. I have it in S tier.
I also have it in S tier.
Hell yeah.
What I like about this arc is the time we get to spend with our characters and get to know them, because they're all brand new, and it's a more intimate story.
Yes.
Kind of like you always talk about rebels following a family. You could kind of say that the Aldhani rebels are kind of like a little family in a sense.
A dysfunctional family.
Well, I feel like every family's a little dysfunctional.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, we lose a lot of them after spending all this time with them too, and
Mm-hmm.
really getting to know them, which makes it all the more tragic and hit more hard. Plus, we get the introduction of Mon Mothma,
Oh yeah.
the Mon Mothma in this arc, which I feel like people forget because we're so like lasered in on the Aldhani heist.
Yeah.
But the intro to Genevieve O'Reilly's Mon Mothma as like
Mm-hmm.
her true form Mon Mothma,
Yeah.
so good. I like I said, I had it in S tier too. It's a really great arc, and I do think it's a bit underrated as well because, well, I was gonna say maybe it's not as flashy, but the Eye of Aldhani is
Yeah.
like very, very visually cinematic and flashy. So it's a great arc.
Yeah, 100%. I think S tier is the best option. Also, not only the introduction of Mon Mothma, but the introduction of Dedra and the entire ISB. That entire thing kicks off here in this arc.
It's a great arc. We get the ISB and learn. We see Dedra girl bossing. This is where we start rooting for her,
Mm-hmm.
and we see Mon's horrible family as well,
Yeah,
which we had no idea existed.
exactly.
This arc does a lot in
Mhm.
3 episodes.
Yeah, it is sad that under, all the different things that come from Andor, the absolute greatness, this one does seem to get a little buried underneath. But then again, the Eye of Aldhani, everyone loves the Eye of Aldhani. So
I have the desk mat of it. Like it's a great part of Andor. But let's move on from there and get to our only standalone episode.
mhm.
This one is kind of I don't want to call it the stepchild, but it's basically the fallout of Aldhani.
Mhm.
And we get Cassian kind of going back to Ferrix, trying to leave. He eventually ends up on Niamos,
Mhm.
deciding like, I did my thing for the rebellion, I'm done. And the thing I love about this episode is we get the introduction of Tay Kolma and that amazing, underrated Mon Mothma monologue,
Yeah.
a monologue, if you will.
Yeah.
Where do you have this at? Because this was the only one that I wasn't really sure where to put because it's just so different. Because just one episode.
Right. Yeah, it does almost feel a little unfair to compare it to like 3 episode arcs, but I have it in A tier. I think the episode is actually very beautiful, down to even some of the editing choices that they make with like showing the flashbacks of, Cassian losing his father.
With Clem.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the very, very heartbreaking stuff and all of that. Like the music, the editing, the way that they basically execute the entire thing, it's really good. But the thing is that, like you mentioned, it's kind of a transitional episode between the Aldhani
Mhm.
arc and the Narkina 5 arc. And so because of that,
Yeah.
it's not, as glorious as some of the other arcs in Andor. But
Yeah.
like you mentioned, Mon Mothma and Tay Kolma, I mean, that scene is genuinely so impressive from an acting perspective. Genevieve O'Reilly,
Mhm.
constantly in my mind, I think about smile, smile, just like
Mhm.
trying to trick these guests into thinking they're just having a fun conversation, reminiscing on the old days.
Yeah.
In reality, Mon Mothma is asking for help for rebellion. And
Yeah.
when watching that scene, you actually realize how little she reveals to Tay Kolma in the beginning. Like he has no idea, and she kind of gives him this non-answer of what's actually going on. So I think A tier.
I love it. It's so good. Like, and this is where we really get into the political thriller, I
Mhm.
would say, of Andor, which is one of, I think, both of our favorite parts about it.
Mhm.
So A tier, great spot. I like that.
Yeah. Shout out Star Wars that talks about mass incarceration and police brutality. Well, speaking of mass incarceration and horrible prison systems, the Narkina 5 arc. I have this in
Yeah.
S tier. I think it's obvious. I have it above the Aldhani arc. It's like genuinely probably the best arc of the show. There's one other arc that I think competes with it. I mean, who doesn't love seeing Kino Loy slowly be radicalized into leading this entire
Yeah.
revolt of the entire prison system leaving and being able to flee and escape? It's so beautiful watching Kino Loy go from this leader that's like so by the book. He thinks that if he follows every single rule to a T, that he will somehow get out of there, and then slowly realizing nobody's getting out of this prison. There's only one way out. I love it. I love this arc so
Literally.
much that, I mean, what
Yeah.
other place than S tier?
Yeah, it's a great arc, and I one of my favorite parts about it is just kind of like you mentioned, but with the overall theme with all the characters in the prison is that we all kind of watch them slowly realize that they have no way out.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're never getting out. We see the political side with Mon Mothma talking about the PORD initiative and how it all just kind of weaves together, even though they're so far removed from one another.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, we get the introduction of Davos Golden, who becomes a big thing for season 2,
Yeah.
and we get Luthen's monologue that I
Yeah.
feel like is one of the best moments talked about in this series when it comes to the monologues. It's Luthen's monologue from the
Mm-hmm.
Narkina 5 arc.
Mm-hmm. Some might even say that arc is everything.
Literally, because it is.
Yes. So Narkina 5 S tier at the very front, beating out Aldhani. Sorry,
Oh yeah.
Aldhani.
Did I even say I agreed? But yes, I completely agree. S tier at the top right now.
Mm-hmm.
And with this brings us to the final arc of season 1, which is the second Ferrix arc, where we take everything back to where it all started.
Yes.
And this is a really heartbreaking arc because we also, right before this is where Cassian learns that Marva has passed.
Mm-hmm.
And the entire arc is kind of seeing the radicalization of Ferrix standing up finally and coming together. We've always seen them as this family community, but really seeing them stand together, and it's just like eclipsed with Marva's hologram and her amazing monologue,
Mm-hmm.
like literally telling everyone to fight the Empire, stand up for what you believe in, stand up for Ferrix. Like,
Yeah.
it's such a great arc, and I don't know if you will agree with me, but I actually have it in S tier.
I do too. I have it at the end of S tier. It is absolutely beautiful. It's a great culmination of all of the themes of season 1. I really loved that season 1 got to focus on a full year rather than season 2 having to focus on 4 years, because everything seems to come together in that finale.
Yeah.
Thematically, just different characters finally getting to see where they end up. It's such a beautiful finale, and you can tell how much work went into that. I mean, think of the entire ending of the revolt against the Empire and the giant riots and everything. That the amount of people that must have been involved, not just like think of the extras that had to be on set that day, but like all of the behind the scenes, just it's so beautiful. It's crafted so well.
So I actually have it above Aldhani, and I think the reason why is because it, like I said, it's the culmination. It's literally the climax, and it gets all of our main characters together, which we saw happen with season 2, but I feel like they did it better in season 1. And I feel like, I guess it also helps that all these characters we've seen throughout the show, whereas the Aldhani rebels, a lot of them, we meet them and then they die. But Mon Mothma's not there. So, and she is in the Aldhani arc. So I think we can put it at the end of S tier.
The end of S tier. That's funny. I was willing to maybe put it ahead of Aldhani, but no, you make a good point. And the finales of Andor, I have this like weird relationship with them where they're pretty much perfect, but maybe it's because Andor is so good that once you get to the finale, your expectations are just so through the roof that it just falls the tiniest bit flat. But it's still at the end of S tier, so it's definitely still great.
At least we get finales, because not all Star Wars shows got official finales. So
very true. All right, now moving into the second season of Andor, the season that we actually got to cover on this podcast, we have the premiere arc, the Mina-Rau Arc, or as Scotty may want to say, the Chandrila Arc.
The Chandrila Arc.
Yeah, I think Mina-Rau is an interesting way to put it, but it definitely was a planet there. I loved seeing the Mina-Rau stuff. I loved seeing Bix and Brasso. I loved the stuff with Lita's wedding on Chandrila, like you said, but I think back to the Cassian arc, and it's just not my favorite. Listen, I love seeing the infighting of these rebels, because obviously that's a big part of Revolution. Leftists are fighting each other all the time, and it gets no progress done. It's definitely a real thing, but I don't think season 2 had enough time to actually let that go where it needed to go, because by the time we see Yavin again, it's pretty much fully formed. People are living there, people are working out of there. It's pretty much all together. And so it doesn't feel like there was a good follow up to that to actually include it as part of season 2, and because of that, I have this arc in B tier. At the beginning of B tier, but still in B tier.
I don't know how I feel about that, because I honestly agree with the majority of what you've said. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I love, it's no secret that I love Lita's wedding, that whole arc,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of getting like what we did with the second Ferrix arc in season 1, the finale, where we kind of get all our characters together, and it's also like a great catch up
Right.
for all of us right after, this is the beginning of the season. So it's great to catch up with everybody. And
Mm-hmm.
Cassian starts off great.
Yeah, he
Um,
does.
he starts off great when he steals the TIE Avenger.
Yeah.
He's, showing that girl like you're joining a rebellion, like you're answering the call. And we see, I think the point of him being on Yavin with the other rebels is that like we're supposed to see how much he has grown,
Mm-hmm.
but they're just so ugh. I
Annoying.
I dreaded every time we went back to them, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
they're so annoying, they're so goofy. It
Mm-hmm.
was just not my favorite.
And that's where the slow burn of Andor becomes not a bad thing, but I guess like a little bit of a negative, because we spend so much time with every single thing that happens that it's like even the stuff that we don't like these annoying Yavin rebels, we still have to spend so much time with them. We probably spent like half an hour in
Yes,
total following these
I
characters,
know.
with like most of the time Cassian just sitting there and watching them fight and play rock paper scissors.
I would have just watched more wedding preparation bullshit. You know
For
what? Why
sure.
didn't we get Mon and Tay on a date? Why don't we
Because
get that?
he had to be killed. So they had to
That's
put a
true.
wedge between them.
R.I.P. R.I.P. Tay. I mean, I guess it can be in B tier. In talking about it with you, and I was fair about this on mine. I did not have it in S tier. I had it in A tier, but it was not the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that the standalone Niamos episode is a better episode
Mm-hmm.
overall. Um, so I guess we can put it at the front of B tier.
Front of
It
B
just
tier.
makes me so sad because I think of the wedding and Mon dancing, and it's so
You're
good,
so
and that
right though.
remix of Niamos is so good.
You're
It's
so
just
right
so
though.
intense.
Yeah, and quite honestly, I think they're thinking about it now. Once you say all that
Brasso's
stuff,
death.
yeah, I think end of A tier, actually. I think you might have accidentally convinced me to put it in A tier, because at the same time, I think there is another arc that is lesser than the Mina-Rau arc. Thinking about it now. When
Ooh,
I made this tier list, I did not think that, but so Mina-Rau at the end of A tier sounds good.
sounds great.
Sounds good. So sorry Ferrix won the premiere arc, but I think it might get a little lonely in beats here. Well, let's see actually.
This brings us to the kind of what I would call one of the main settings of season 2. It's
Yes.
the Ghorman arc, and it's the
Mhm.
first Ghorman arc.
Mhm.
And with this arc, this kind of really ties us into what's going to happen later. It's a great
Mhm.
precursor.
Exactly.
We get to learn about the Ghorman front. We get to learn about the first Tarkin massacre. We get that amazing reunion of Vel and Cinta, which I think was great. I wish we got more time with them.
Mhm.
Um, and we get some great stuff on Coruscant. Is it my favorite arc? No.
Me either.
Is it the inferior Gorman arc?
Oh,
100%.
100%.
But I still had it in A tier. And I actually had it before the Mina-Rau arc.
Really. So, see, when I made my tier list first, I had it like that. But thinking
Mhm.
about it now, I think it's lesser than the Mina-Rau arc, because, like you said, it is just kind of set up for what's to come. We have Cassian going undercover on Gorman and things like that, and we start to see like Dedra and Cyril's relationship. That's where their relationship starts to really blossom.
Oh, and his undercover work on Gorman, which
Hmm.
was great until we learned he was lying the whole time.
Right. But I think it's the calm before the storm. It's the precursor to the
Yes.
Ghormon Massacre, and so because of that, it's like automatically inferior to the rest of the season. So, in my opinion, my changed opinion, I'm a changed man. I think that this should be the beginning of B tier. When trying to think of like moments that stick out to me from this arc, there's not many. The thing that sticks out to me is Saw Gerrera at the end with "You're here and you're here now."
Righto, I love you.
Righto is my sister and she loves me.
Yeah. This arc, I think this arc is the one that suffers the most. I feel like, well, no, that's not true. I feel like this arc and another one suffer for the same reason, because there's so much going on, and it would have been better if we spent more time. I love that we get to meet the Ghorman front. Everything on Ghorman with kind of the world building and lore there is really what saves this for me. And also, of course, Davos party.
Yeah.
But with the diva off between Mon and Krennic. But it's just I wanted more time with all of the little pieces in here. So I think that B tier, which is funny because it's completely different than why like the first Ferrix arc is in B tier. But B tier, I think it's a good one, because like Ferrix 1 is the precursor to the Ferrix 2 finale. Ghorman 1 is the precursor to the Ghorman finale, you could call it.
And can I just say, I do love the Ghorman front, but at times it felt like Diet Aldhani. Like a lesser version of what we saw on Aldhani with like a small group. And I understand they're trying to do different things here. The Ghorman was a front. It was not ever meant to be an actual group that was rebelling. It was put on by the Empire. So I don't know. It just at times felt like a lesser version.
Well, and they literally talk about it. They're like, these people are unprepared. That's why Cassian doesn't stay with them, and why Vel and Cinta have to go there. Yeah. And Cinta dies kind of unceremoniously, in my opinion. So
yeah, Ghorman 1 may not be the best arc, but you know what was the best arc? Ghorman 2. Ghorman 2, the Ghormon Massacre. I feel like everything was leading to this moment. In some ways, everything. In some ways, I feel like this is more of a culmination of the entirety of Andor than the actual finale of Andor. And I think I said that on the podcast.
Oh, yeah. Yes. We definitely talked about similar themes.
Yeah. So I think Ghorman 2, number one arc in the entirety of the show, above Narkina 5, which is really hard, and I struggled with this so much, but like I said, it's the culmination of everything. Yeah, because I mean Narkina 5 is like so like brilliantly made. It's absolutely beautiful and gorgeous.
You could honestly say they're like the kind of the parallels to one another. One, we're seeing this glorious uprising of the people really taking back the power, and then the other is the Empire shoving the people down further under their control, and it's literally a massacre. They're almost, I don't want to say they're two different sides of the same coin, but there's definitely similarities, and one is more positive, one is more negative. But the thing that I feel like we need to bring up also, which I think lifts this above Narkina 5, is Mon Mothma's speech to the Senate, her escape, and what I'll say, Bix's goodbye.
Yeah.
These all also happened in this arc. This arc was jam-packed, but I feel like it had the time to slow down, and we really sat in these moments, which made them so much more impactful, which is where Ghorman 1, I feel like, suffered a bit because there was so much going on. And like Cinta's death, I said it was so unceremonious. Whereas we're walking around with Cyril, we're walking around with Cassian in the crowd before anything happens.
Yeah.
And Mon's speech, need I say more?
Yeah. Oh, it was brilliant. Yeah, this arc definitely does the best with like invoking emotions. Like I just remember going from like acting like I was watching a fucking football game, being like, "Oh my, what is going on? What are we doing here?" And then we get to Mon Mothma's speech, and even that feels so exhilarating when she's leaving the Senate building and escaping with Cassian. Yeah. This one
I kid you not, I'm getting goosebumps just like thinking about it and like replaying it in my head. Like, this arc just hits. And I talked about this in our episode, but after everything was done on Ghorman, I had to keep myself from ugly, like crying and like vocally like going like, ah! Like,
yeah. So yeah, as fucked up as it is to say that the best arc is the one where innocent civilians were genocided, I don't
literally.
feel bad.
And they said it. Let's say the most impactful arc.
No, let's say it's the best. It's the best.
I mean, it's the best and the most impactful, I think, for sure. Which then brings us to the final arc, the end of the end.
Mm-hmm.
What they're calling the Coruscant arc, what I feel like is more of like the Yavin arc.
Or just the finale arc, you know?
I struggle with this arc a lot.
Me too.
And one of the things we said in our episode, and I don't know if you agreed with me or not, but I remember saying it felt like an epilogue almost.
Mm-hmm.
Like this felt like the Rebel season 4 epilogue of Andor, the series, because it got everybody where we needed them to be. I think one of the standout parts is obviously Luthen's sacrifice. And also seeing him and Clea's relationship and the sacrifices that they have pulled off to get where they are. But I don't know. I struggle with it a lot. I think it starts off good, but I don't think it ends super great.
Yeah, I feel weird about it too because on one end it feels like they really had to rush to get to Rogue One, and then on the other end it almost feels like they didn't have enough to actually show
to fill.
Right, like they had everything happen in this Ghorman arc, and now it's like, okay, we know we need to get to Rogue One, but how are we going to get there? And maybe it's just because the true finale of Andor is Rogue One, but like you mentioned, this doesn't feel like a finale. The Ghorman arc feels like the finale of Andor, and this feels like the prologue. So yeah, I have it in A tier, but above the Mina-Rau arc.
I don't think that makes any sense.
I mean, I still think that there's a lot to love in here that's a lot better than the Mina-Rau arc. I mean, the action with everything with K2SO, that was so interesting, like you said, with Clea. I will say, honestly, the flashbacks really dragged down that arc for me. I don't know why. I just don't connect with the Clea and Luthen flashbacks, whether it's because it just felt like it was too late to try to get me to, like, care about these characters' relationship or what. But when we were focusing on that stuff, I'm like, oh my God, we need to focus on getting to the Rogue One part of things. We need to focus on this arc being a finale. And then the last 2 episodes, it's like, okay, we're going to get to the finale to the point where the ending is just a montage of all the characters that they couldn't write into the arc because there was no proper place for them. So
yeah, and that's another thing. I feel so bad. I've never connected with Clea, and I loved her a lot. I liked her a lot more in season 2, and it did make me grow to enjoy the character more. I think she got more time to stand out, and it's no issue to the actress behind her or anything.
Oh yeah,
I just never connected with her really, and I feel like that's because she always had a wall up. And Luthen's kind of the same way, which makes it hard to connect with him. He's giving great monologues. He's instrumental in the rebellion, and he makes the ultimate sacrifice for it in the end, which is unexpected but expected at the same time. I don't know. Whereas the Mina-Rau arc has the moments on Yavin that I don't love, I feel like the other main parts of the arc are really great. Whereas in this arc, I feel like it has a great first half, and then the second half is just kind of meh.
Yeah.
So that's why I say it's above Mina-Rau. I actually had it as I had it in last place on my ranking.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
But in talking about it now, I do feel like the first Ferrix arc is a little bit better.
Really?
I would still put Ghorman 1 above it though.
Interesting. So I think from the sounds of it, because you didn't like it that much, I think that drags it down to B tier in our tier list. But does it go before Ferrix or after?
Let's scroll back up in the notes. Let's check and see what points we can make here. But the Ferrix one, that ending episode where it all explodes is so good. But then we take into consideration the beginning of this final arc of season 2 has that same explosive energy.
I will say,
I feel like we put it before Ferrix 1.
Yeah, I think that makes sense because I have it in A tier, so I definitely don't think it should be the last. So, with that being said, this is our official Andor arc tier list of everything coming all together. It's funny because this really does not differentiate much from my own tier list.
Obviously, if you all want more of our thoughts, we've got 4 episodes out covering each arc, so you can hear us go into them more in depth.
Yeah, 100%. And sadly, I think this concludes our Andor era of the Wayseekers podcast. I mean, I'm sure we're going to talk about it more, but we can't keep focusing on it. We have to move on at some point.
And it's very bittersweet. I feel like I'm reliving finale night all over again.
I know. So bittersweet. But I'm so thankful that we had a show like Andor. It's truly a miracle in terms of Star Wars, in terms of storytelling in general. So shout out Tony Gilroy. But Scotty, if there's nothing else left, why don't you send us out of here?
Make sure you follow us on social media so you don't miss any of our amazing Star Wars content at Wayseekers Pod or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you all so much for watching, and may the Force be with you always.